Okay, what we now do, we play a serious game to introduce you a little bit more about the content of or concept for design for social justice. For that, we prepared a game. The game is developed by our students at the UT, and it's called Voices of the Village. It's a role-playing game, so we already built it up. There are different roles that any of you can take. We have 5 different roles in the game. So the first are the women of the community. The others are the next is the man of the community. Then we also have the leader of the community, the NGO perspective, and engineers. How it will work. So the idea is that in this game, you together with all stakeholders develop and implement an engineering solution for and with a certain community in a remote village in Tanzania. You have different rounds that are indicated by the different steps. In each round, you first have time to discuss with the whole group, and then you make a vote for the solution that best reflects your interests. Maybe you got convinced by the other arguments, maybe not. Of course, everyone has different types of information on the card. That's basically it. And then the majority vote decides, and we go to the next round. That's more or less is it. Every role also has some constraints. I will ask you to read the role in a second, so then you can also find out a little bit more. And if there are questions, you can answer them. So I want to stress this for respectful role-playing. We don't want to imitate any accent. Of course, well, we have seen that before, so just to be aware of it. And also, of course, for you that is now irrelevant because you just learned about it.
Some people get too much into the role and they start using.
Also, no traditional clothing. That is not from your own culture. Maybe offensive, but since you just learned about it, I don't think that will happen. Then I think.
Maybe we can.
May I ask if there is a language that several people speak that is not English, but other people don't speak? No?
There was a couple of Chinese people. I speak Hebrew, but I don't know anybody else does.
Spanish.
Okay.
No? So there is no language common to any of you? You speak the same language, but you already listened, you read already something? Did you read this already?
No, I just have a glimpse.
Okay, because
They can switch.
yeah, so I think if there's a second language, we can make it that the woman and the man of the community are located there, if that's okay. Yeah? Someone else speaking that language?
I speak Spanish, but I don't know if it's.
Okay.
So we can discuss without other people understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
They
French.
just
If
have
you
a second
It's Spanish, I think the Americans will get it.
Okay.
Both Latin language.
Because there's no third person speaking your language? Yeah, then if you take the leader of the community, that would be great.
Now we need another language.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise we ask people to then sometimes go away, but if there's a language that you can discuss that's different than English, then that's an easier solution.
I think we need to merge it because I see that we don't have enough for the second game.
No, we don't have enough for the second game, right?
I think you have to go there and
Yeah.
join with.
Maybe we can have 2 on the engineers and 2 on the NGO side.
You're also playing?
It's gonna be just one.
Okay.
Yeah, then it will be just one game, yeah.
I don't even.
Okay.
This role is very high stakes.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe you can could you give the engineers, sorry.
All the colonial languages.
Order? Yeah.
Oh wait,
Italian.
if you could share one role, because we have to share now, and then we give them the engineer roles.
No, I think we have a really bad history with that.
Yeah.
It's one of our True. No, we had a bit of in Ethiopia. It was in the beginning of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we have it now in such a way set up that you 2 are the NGO So you
No,
play
actually
together.
not. The first one,
You represent the women of the
sec-
community,
the fir-
and you represent the
first
men
one
of the
we won.
community,
One.
and you two
As much
or
as you
three.
can win. The second one, we switched side.
You three
in the
represent the
middle.
engineers,
Yeah, you're talking about
and
that.
then you are the leader of the community.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Sorry? Yeah. For you, it's fine to speak in English. So all of you can now read the card to familiarize with the character.
Yeah, city planning.
The thing about is that the moment
Okay. So, of course, all of you have different constraints, so it would be good that you keep the constraints to yourself. Okay.
No.
Maybe I should sabotage this game.
I said moments. Not Italians. Italians are here. It's
Okay, it sounds like I'm
Well,
a
obviously.
green person. I don't trust people from the outside. I hate people telling me what to do for my community.
You got this Garibaldi. The old question of what Byzantines are moving to. That's cool.
This is great. Hey, who came up with this game? It's awesome.
That's middle age. You know, think about the middle age, right?
Who are you?
I'm still reading.
Yeah. Well, Belgium's younger.
Sorry, guys. This reminds me of like game of the recitation.
Wait, I don't speak English.
You don't at all. Like,
Yeah, you don't speak English.
who do you communicate with?
Oh, really? So both of us will speak.
Okay, but please, just because of course there are some dynamics written on the card that the others shouldn't be aware of. So please don't discuss too much.
Oh, I see.
It's still a role-playing game, and you don't necessarily know what the others, what the intention of the others are. Okay, you need some more time.
Oh, no, Francis Alpine.
So if there are any questions beforehand, you can ask me, and we. Okay. Just about the game, okay, not about the role. Okay, yeah.
Do the colors of the cards mean anything? Orange,
So
green, blue?
generally, these are the colors of our logo,
Oh, okay.
but it just of our research group. But it just means that this is the first round, this is the second, this third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So we have 6 voting rounds. But otherwise, it just means that,
Okay.
represents the 3 colors.
Sorry, who's doing the voting?
All of you are doing the voting.
But isn't it the people in the community that decide?
It's you all together are deciding.
Oh, okay.
But it's a good remark, and it's something that we reflect upon later.
What are the chips for?
The chips are for your votes, but so each round I will ask you to vote. So you have some time to discuss first with the group, and then after that time you're voting blindly. So I ask you to close your eyes, and then I call out each stakeholder separately, and you vote. So it's anonymous in a way what you vote for.
I actually like them, but I don't like them.
Okay. Do you need more? You have a question? Okay.
Is that, I don't speak English, but can I understand when people speak?
Yeah,
I
you
need
should.
to pretend I don't understand.
No, you can understand a little bit, but not very well.
Ah, I see. Okay. So,
But, yeah.
so for her, it's the same.
So I'm even more
Mhm.
don't understand.
Yeah. Okay. You have other questions, or you're okay to start playing? You have a question?
Just a question here. Does it have to be related to this, or just the fact that more funding will be given if you do this?
Yeah, so they it just represents possibly what you would be interested in.
Okay,
Because
but it could be
yeah.
other things, but this
Yeah.
one gets more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we are ready to play? Okay. Then we will start. So welcome to the community, or to the game Voices of the Village, and to the remote community in Tanzania. Yeah, you are a team of engineers from the Netherlands over there, currently stationed in Tanzania. Your mission to co-create an engineering solution that truly serves the needs of a remote community. So indeed, it's about co-creation, so working together with the community. You're not working alone. A locally based NGO has been your key partner on the ground, helping you navigate the unfamiliar context. So that's you. You're the key partner on the ground. After a few initial meetings and time spent in the region, you've realized something important. From the outside, it's hard to truly understand the challenges a community faces, especially without living them. That's why you've asked a community leader over there to bring everyone together for an open village meeting. Today is that day. For the first time, the engineers, the NGO, the community, so there's other men of the community, the women of the community, and the leader of the community, are all sitting down together. Your task now is to decide and to discuss and decide not only what type of technology to develop, but also how it will be used, maintained, and sustained in the long run. Yeah. Are you ready to shape a solution with the community, not just for them? All right. Starting with the first round. So we turn around. So there's also some time pressure on each round, because how we experience that in a usual setting is community meetings are also very short. Like a lot of times a stakeholder comes too late, or then someone has to go. So we have a little bit of time pressure. So I will keep a bit an eye on the clock. We start first with two different solutions. So we came here and we first want to know a little bit more which type of solution do we actually want to focus on. Is it more in the area of water supply, or is it in the area of healthcare? Now, of course, the engineers and the NGO, they came to also get a bit of the understanding of what the community wants. We have now some time to discuss. For the beginning, we give you 3 minutes to discuss, and then we will vote. All right?
We discuss among ourselves or among?
You can discuss with each other. But you can also discuss with your team.
我的资讯是两个都很需要。
See what the needs.
健康。
我是水。
Guys, we can communicate online. Because we speak the same language. But we can't communicate with others. So for you, what's the need?
We can communicate with the leader and you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
我上面是写说水资
Should we
源不
wait
够
for the leader
只有
to
这样。
gather the insight of the
Oh, maybe if you don't have the
但
insight.
是
Oh,
我
yeah,
那
okay.
这样子你要自己决定。
Yeah, we don't have any
Oh,
insights.
okay,
yet.
okay, good.
We're just the money.
Oh, okay.
Or like the. Are we not money?
Money and
哦，我的意思说，这样是我们要有效达成
Organization
的
and
事。
we're also like thoughts and prayers.
哦
But
所以就看我是一个好的 leader，不是
Are you
好
like-
的 leader。
sanitation. What type of
哦，
engineers?
你们两个都是要听我们两个声音，是这样吗？你是我们
You just have to make sure it suits the needs
所以如果我是好的，
and what you hear on the ground. Basically.
上面说你是一个好
如果
人，
是水的话，那基本上我的 background 就完全没有用。
你是什么？
The time's gonna run out, so you're gonna have
So
to
leader,
share a
like,
bit.
what do you guys think? Like,
Shit, okay. Wait, I thought. Oh, okay.
so like we don't know what you guys want.
You can communicate with us, but we
We're-
can't
We're
communicate.
very open to like any type of.
Hard decision on my part.
We all depend on you.
This
Like,
is so tough.
What's
are you guys leaning on any certain solution? Is one more feasible than the other?
It's based on needs.
I mean,
It's
as an
based
NGO,
on needs.
I mean, we have analyzed a lot of all the territory we have identified.
We have.
Like through qualitative and quantitative data that
You have?
that it's we have
It's
indeed.
equally.
But they're both to us are both equally important. But
Yeah, okay, guys.
it's all to you.
So what did you hear on
I'm
the
a little
ground?
torn.
Okay.
Just because I heard from my community
The men and women.
that the women is spending a lot of time going to fetch water, and then the men are equally like they care equally about the two issues. Like there's not enough resources for water supply, and then they care about the healthcare center just in general. Is there a certain point of view?
Okay.
Okay.
现在医疗的部分其实是缺点，如果是针对医疗本身的话，水资源没有缺，水资源是医疗之外，水资源也缺。
哦，所以其实 healthcare 比较重要，在你们的角度上。
都很重要。
但是
这比较像是民生用水。这是民生用水，不是医疗用，不是医院里面的用水不够，就这比较像是民生用水。
So you have 15 more seconds.
Okay. Oh my God, we gotta do voting.
Okay, so I'm just torn. Okay, I probably shouldn't share this, but whatever. But I'm torn because people are getting sick really quickly, but then the healthcare center is not. Maybe because water, who knows? But but the healthcare center doesn't have like consistent electricity and energy to support the needs. So I'm like, but then people do. It seems like people do need water, and if that's also a source of contamination or like
All right.
sickness, then that will.
We will vote now. It's voting time. Perfect. So now you heard a little bit of what the community likes to have. It's already nice to see that you prioritize the needs of the community. So I asked you all to close your eyes, and then I will call you out individually, and then you can open your eyes and tell me which solution you prefer. Okay? All right. So I first call out the NGO. Can you just point on the solution that you like? Just point.
Yeah. Well, Finnish is Iceland.
Okay. Yeah. And then I'm calling out the leader of the community. Can you point on what you like? Okay. Can you give me your ship? Okay. Thank you. And then I'm calling on the engineers. So which solution would you prefer? Okay. Can I get your point? Then I'm calling the man of the community. Can you point on the solution that you prefer? Okay. And then I'm calling the woman of the community. Can you point? Okay. Yeah? Can I get it? Okay, perfect. You can open your eyes. Just checking who gets more votes.
This is serious business.
All right. And we have a decision. We continue with the healthcare system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Surprisingly, yeah.
So
Surprising turn of events.
you all get your coins back.
Is the language barrier?
It's a trading nation.
So now we have to discuss again. So we decided, based on your previous discussion and the voting, that we will go with improving the healthcare center. Now we have two options. Either we can install solar panels for better electricity supply, more reliable electricity supply, or we can extend the healthcare center. All right? Huh? Okay, perfect. That's good. So you have another. You have another 2. Yeah, you can find out later, but you have another 2 minutes.
It's a rigged election.
That's important to know for the trust of the conversation because I thought we were all leaning towards water.
So you have another 2 minutes to discuss.
So later in the community, what exactly?
Well, actually,
From my observation, well, you could probably also ask our other community members.
We can't communicate with you.
Oh no, she speaks a little bit.
Oh yeah, just a little bit.
She speaks a little bit, and I can help facilitate.
So there's no enough space for our hospital.
Okay,
医院的空间还不够，负担现在病人的量。
The capacity is not enough for
Earlier you mentioned the electricity was an issue.
对，这也是医院的电价也。
Oh, you also think it's an issue that there's not much.
Oh, that's the talking to
You
me.
care about
What are you bringing to the table in terms of information?
We have identified.
What's your capacity to implement?
Can you come back to us? One second.
Once you see it, it's like, yeah.
I mean, I think for us, we're engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, so
So-
like,
We know that the frequent lag of electricity is a problem within the healthcare center. However, we have also identified different vacant lots that could be used to expand
you have the money.
like the healthcare center or like to implement new centers. But we also but we also go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We're also like pretty focused on like electricity, and we do have technicians that can help maintain the electrical infrastructure.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
We have the know-how.
Okay, 15 more seconds and then we stop.
Yeah, and apparently I can also help because I'm an electrical engineer. For the solar panels, I guess, and if you have identified lots, then maybe for this center we focus on maintaining it and making sure it's high quality before expanding to other lots.
I'm worried that we're not thinking about the underserved community because we're focused all on the individual capacity.
All right.
I mean, they go ahead and work.
No, but because we all have the skills, so we already have this bias, so I wonder if we're missing out on the side that maybe that's required rather than it's convenient.
But like by reinforcing the already existing healthcare center, we are making sure it's working for also community as a whole.
But maybe
What
we need
kind
that
of
electricity.
underserved communities are you talking about?
Like just in terms of like maybe the people who are like maybe the electricity is some kinds of people. But like,
All right. I think we have to come to voting. So you heard some perspectives. Now I hope you have enough information to vote again. So please close your eyes. And now we are starting here. So the women of the community, can you open your eyes and point towards? Okay. Thank you. And then the man of the community, can you open your eyes and tell me where you want to vote for?
There's a castle.
Okay, thank you. Then the engineers, can you open your eyes and let me know where you want to vote for?
I can walk to it.
Okay.
To market. Like the lady had it, I was using it.
All right. And then I'm also asking the leader of the community, can you open your eyes and let me know where you want to vote for? Okay.
Don't know any castles.
And the NGO, can you open the eyes and let me know where you want to vote for?
There's a summer school there.
Okay.
I thought you would know, but it's not.
All right. Then you can open your eyes. Where's my card? And we are going for the solar panel round.
reinforcing our bias.
I mean, we're just being good game players.
Can you distribute that again? I will just.
It's like you don't think about the underserved.
Is
Oh no, it's a trap.
Yeah. I'm actually the reason I'm suspicious that they actually rigged the result of the first vote to push us down like a bad path.
Yeah.
I think
never
that's
know.
possible.
I think we need to reevaluate
The voting system.
All right.
The matrix. We have to think about that.
So yeah, we turn around the one that we didn't use, and then yeah, we can turn around 7 and 8 indeed.
Maybe we should have the chairs next to it.
Yeah, because if you open your eyes, you'll see like how many ships are holding.
Then we would
That's
know if
exactly
it's
why it-
true. Oh, okay.
Okay, now we have to make another decision. So we have to decide if if we now locate the solar panels quite away from the village, and then we just lay some cables towards the village, because there is more space and there's also more sun. Or we just relocate it in the village. And then, of course, there's not, it's very, very close to the village. It's in the village.
Yeah, what's the benefit of having it closer?
It's more expensive.
What's the benefit?
What's the benefit of having it closer? Well, I mean, we will also look into operational maintenance.
But the
And then someone has to,
the community members aren't maintaining it. The NGO people are.
well, we decide who's maintaining it. It's not yet decided.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, you may have some preferences on your card, but others may have some other preferences on the card. So it's not yet decided who maintains it. And then, of course, if someone from the village will maintain it, it means also that they have a longer way to do that. So.
Are there any negatives of having it in the village? Are there any negatives of having the panels in the village? Because I know that sometimes people don't like.
Yeah, it will be a little bit more expensive to install because there are space issues, and then we have to relocate some other things. So it will be a little bit more expensive.
But we learned that there's vacant lot, so. There were vacant
So.
They're out. Yeah, they're like the outskirts.
outskirts.
The marginal periphery of the.
Okay, I will give you now another 2 minutes to discuss in your group which solution you would favor.
I want another Hebrew speaker.
That's a question to the group. I think we should probably, to evaluate this, I think we should first decide who's going to be doing it. So if it's the community members, then whatever their preferences are probably most important. But if it's us, I think we're employing the technicians, so we probably should make up information about what they would prefer. So who do you guys think should be maintaining?
I think if we're in the design process right now, we're not necessarily at a point where we can understand what we're governing. So we might want to make a decision right now that's like independent of that, because it could go like multiple ways in the future, or y'all could not exist in the future or something, and then it's on the community.
So we have the leader of the community who trained electricians. If you want to.
Because I think the Hebrew, then they answer, I just didn't. And I think it's cute.
I would like to offer them maintain the technology that will be
Oh.
probably the community.
Oh, okay, they beat us to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's worse.
So you ask the men and women if they would rather have it like within their community or like 15-minute walk is like okay for now.
But what do
但
the
是你觉得
women?
近一点会多一点？
Let's hear the voice of the woman.
Because they're the ones who do more the labor. So the
No,
women.
just-
There's an age for this.
Oh, true. Wait, labor
Yeah, what's the woman?
省下对，
I love that.
感觉是游戏。
但他们是他们付钱。
Wait, don't we speak their language?
OK， 好，好。
You should listen
这是一个
to
游
the
戏。
women. There was no secret.
Like yeah, she said something. Okay. Okay. Code switch.
Code switch.
Okay. Yeah. We just want whatever's like more, like whatever's cheaper, so we can potentially use the leftover money for water.
Okay.
Okay, so we are coming to a decision. We are ready to vote.
Can we just check that that's what the women want to?
All right.
I can only use my body.
All right, then we come to a third voting round of, please close your eyes, and I asked again the NGO to let me know, to open your eyes and let me know what you prefer. Okay, sorry. And the leader of the community, can you let me know what you prefer? Okay, can I get you? Oh, sorry. The engineers, can you let me know what you want to vote for? Okay. All right, and then we asked the woman of the community. Okay. And we asked the man of the community. Okay. And then you can all open your eyes again. And we will go for this solution, which is, sorry, I can't read it very well, 15-minute walk. So you can divide that again. All right. Now that we have decided on where to locate our solution, our healthcare solar panels, solar panels for the healthcare system, we can turn around the next 5 cards, and here we will decide together, so it's not an anonymous round, who should be involved the most. So we start here on the left side with the people who are the most involved, and on the right side with the people that are the least involved in the design and implementation of the solar panels. Yeah.
We just have to choose one?
No, you choose the scale of involvement. So you start on the left here with the people that should be most involved and make the most decisions, to the least on the right. Of course, that means that this person or this organization has a little bit less to say, but still a lot to say, this a little bit less, and so forth.
Sorry, is this design or implementation?
Both.
Like over time?
Yeah, it's the whole project. Within the project until it's ready for implementation, ready for operation. No. Operation and maintenance is extra, but the whole project management until it's ready to operate.
So we're giving it a percentage.
Yeah, a scale of involvement, high to lower. So you have 3 minutes again.
We volunteer ourselves to be the like most involved in design and operation, being the NGO that has like the know-how, trying to keep it in place. And also, and I would say that after us, as an NGO, we have to men and women of the community like be super involved in like how to do it. So they know the expertise after we're like outside, like gone out of the picture. So then they can also be like taught how to do it afterwards.
I wonder though, like, if the person who's most established is the leader of the community, who can communicate with the people directly. Like, if you're thinking long term, I think you want someone who might be established, but as an NGO, are you supposed to be there long term?
I mean, you never know.
So that answers.
I think the NGO y'all could like manage the project, but I actually kind of disagree, and I think y'all should be the least engaged, where it should be maybe the leader and then the engineers, because then you're pulling in like the technical know-how and you're pulling in the voice of the community. Whereas y'all are like y'all are like the facilitators.
I mean. We see a role.
How much time do we have to discuss?
In total 3 minutes, and you have 1.5 left.
Wait, let's say there's one thing we didn't talk about, the relationship between men and women in the community. No, because like, are the, is
What
there?
are their typical roles?
Because there's like we have to decide. So like, is there any particularities we need to know from that?
My card does not say anything
No,
about
but
the dynamics.
communicating
Oh.
with them.
Oh, okay.
It still says something in the
我希望你做，就是你是可以当主要做决定的，因为我们
Yes, it's a
不信任外面。
individual
Oh, okay.
我是你是我没有，但我不是。
就我是主要是是照顾家里，然后照顾小孩的角色，然后
I can relate.
I feel like it's not very helpful information.
Okay.
But basically, it doesn't seem like they care much. I do think they care, but it's like, but it's not like, I think they care.
Yeah, because I think women are doing the most labor, so I think. Well, that's an assumption, but like for the healthcare, a lot of it is like birth. There's a lot of people who die from maternity care. Like that's something we need to take into account as well. So in the higher
Yeah, no worries.
women, would the women be first? I would say.
Yeah, but we have someone else, so it's fine. No worries.
你想当主要帮忙设计的人吗？
没有第一去，就我基本上就不会做。
Okay, let's just say we're a unit, and within that unit, I go first, and then I'm saying men, and then women.
Okay.
All right, we have to stop and vote. Oh no, not vote, but vote. And it's like an open round, so you decide together how to make the scale.
Should we be first and then community?
Since this is more like technical.
See, going first is an important thing.
I think the community. Sorry, I know I'm going against precedent here. I actually disagree. I disagree with what Pietro said. Unfortunately, I think the community should go first, and then the engineers second. Because I think if you think about, that's why I quibbled with like the design implementation. Because I feel like the leaders should be really involved with the design, but then the engineers should be front and center on the implementation.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I would probably go leader, engineer, men and women in whatever order the community decides, and then NGO. Okay. I would go.
I feel like you guys are like in the circle, like just like outside the ring.
I would go for that order.
Wait, the left side is the less important.
This is the most important on the left. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, between these two, I don't know, with the card they said men.
But if the men can communicate.
Oh, they communicate more?
All right.
I can speak
All right.
Okay.
Should we make a
Yeah.
decision?
And we're thinking about like the technical management of the solar panels, which I feel like is gonna fall on the more masculine side.
Yeah, but the design of
Engineers, get your shit.
I
Okay.
should also say that it says on my card that like we'll be employing technicians that will be maintaining.
Yeah,
technical
so I think the
solutions.
tech part is not necessary. You're the tech anyway. I think
All right.
we should have it like this, but I don't know.
Okay, so then, anyway, so do you agree on this now, or you want to still change these two cards? To
I
say?
vote to
This side is
switch.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Change?
That makes sense.
You want to leave
Yeah,
it
I
like
think
this?
there's a
No, I
lot of
think that
technical
would be
people already.
Like this?
Decision making.
Oh, you mean
Yes.
engineers shouldn't
No,
be that
women
important?
should like
It's
this.
not a lot of money. Also,
Because there's already enough technicians.
I suppose.
But if that's the community, okay, let's go like this.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so now we have decided on the whole project management and the involvement of each stakeholder. Now we have implemented it, and we move to operation. So now we have the decision, or like to we decide between who should operate it. It could be the leader of the community. It can be engineers from the NGO, or it's an educated community from a neighboring community. Educate community members. Oh no, sorry. This is sorry, yeah, that comes later. We educate members of the community. That's also an option.
Okay, so one thing, I don't know if this is possible within the constraints of the game, but if we're gonna go with engineers from the NGO, then I really think the NGO should have a much higher priority in the decision-making process. But we don't have to go. I don't know if we can go back and change it around. I think that's why this is an important decision to make this decision. But
Is this just for maintaining it?
This is for operating. So basically, they're I mean, okay, in the some other maybe options would have made more sense to operate, but it would basically mean that you go there every day, check that there are no leaves on the solar panels, that you check that the connection is made correctly. So that's on the operation. There's maintenance extra. It's two-step approach.
oh, this is maintenance.
Yeah, and sometimes it also operation also includes security. So some like solar panels also often get stolen. So operation also means that you have a bit of a security role, that you check that nothing gets stolen.
I feel like long-term wise it would be good to like educate people on how to do it, so it's self-sustaining instead of having to hire people to do it, and it'll create more jobs for us.
And the leader, you know how reliable they are. So if you put all your eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
might be a risk.
So is this also like a scale, or like you pick one?
You pick one. So we will vote again after 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah, right. So I think I know what you mean now.
Or actually less, but let's say 1 more minute, because you already discussed a little bit.
How does the community feel about maintaining it?
Wait, this is for maintenance, right?
Operating.
对 operation。
我非常想要 get involved。
哦，是吗？
对。
哦，原来是这样。OK， 好 ，OK。
我也觉得我们家庭应该有更多收入。
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, they're very, very supportive of the community led maintenance.
搞不好这是个无偿作业。
Operations.
其实没有钱。
That's good.
You don't have any other questions? You know what to vote for? All right. Sounds good. Then
wait, sorry, what was the conclusion? It's
Not
educating.
NGO.
That's okay. It's educating the community members.
Yeah.
all right. So then I ask you to close your eyes again, and please. We start with the woman of the community. Can you let me know what you want to vote for? Okay. And the man of the community, can you also let me know? Yeah. The engineers? Yeah. Okay, the leader of the community? Okay. And the NGO? All right, then I give you back the coins. And yeah, we go with educating the community members. And then we do the final round, and that's on maintenance.
No, it's okay. No worries. I just feel.
For the maintenance, we have several options that are 4 in total. So that could be either the leader of the community, because they already have knowledge in electrical engineering. So here a little bit more technical knowledge is required. Then we have engineers from the NGO that could also maintain it. We have educating community members from your own community. But of course, it involves a little bit more training since it's a little bit more technical. And there are also already trained community members from a neighboring community that could also service your solar panels. All right, so I give you another minute to discuss what you would like to choose.
What's the major difference between both?
Yeah, I think the operation is, of course, a little less technical. It's mainly like what I mentioned already. A lot of times it's security and just making sure that it generally, of course, if it fails, then we need maintenance. But just seeing that there may be no leaves or those kind of things on there.
So how's the NGO in terms of technical skills?
They're strong, but I think they're limited by like how long-term the solution was designed.
Yeah.
So if the solution was designed with like I don't know how the specifics, but I guess like if the solution was designed to cater too much to the needs of the community and not with enough forethought to like the long-term maintenance, like there might be a trade-off there. But the engineers stand ready to maintain.
Engineers, I don't know if they were like more short-term.
Oh, sorry, our engineers. Yeah.
I mean, if at the start we try to steer engineers and partners in the community, then assuming that we like designed it in a good way that like fits the needs of the community, then right. But also, I don't know why there would be so much of a need of like outside people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
但他说可以
And I think it's also just very
真的会这么快他就给到，
Yeah.
因为感觉
So
每
we
天
need to keep hiring more.
Yeah.
Like,
有我哦，那你本身很专业的，
对，
还是你？
我死掉了，那是我。
哦，对啊，不写书，所以一般就要一直。
对，因为你还有
要这样的时间。
All right, are we ready to vote?
Sorry, I don't think I'm ready to vote. What were you guys talking about?
We're just saying maintenance-wise, it makes sense also to be under the community long-term.
Yeah, we were talking about that too. We think that they can learn, and then if anything happens, like I can be there, and it's not like we can't communicate with you, right? Like in case of like emergencies, and events that we can contact you guys.
All right, ready to vote? I don't think I need to ask you to close your eyes again. It seems pretty straightforward. You seemed all very convinced with educating the community members, or were you voting for some? No, okay. All right, then we resume the game. Oh, we conclude the game. Sorry, and I would like first to just have a look at the board and to see. Do you think that is this a solution that you're comfortable with, that you think is working? No, okay. You're allowed to speak again English, by the way.
I only have one issue.
Okay.
That I want is clean water, clean accessible water.
Okay,
So-
can we come back to that? Who voted for the healthcare center? Because I thought we had agreed on water.
No, it was 3 people voted for the healthcare center.
Yeah.
It was the engineers, the men,
But we
and the
didn't
leader.
Consider the
Because for me it's
woman,
equally
yeah.
important.
But for the men it was equally important, but for the women it was like the major issue, right? Why did the leader vote with the men?
Because on my card it says healthcare.
Oh yeah, on the,
Oh.
Same for us. Says like if we go with healthcare, we get more funding, then we can pay for more things.
Because like I would be convinced
I
if
didn't
on your
realize
card
that.
water is making people sick.
We didn't say that. We just said our thing is all about electricity
Right,
and
so,
infrastructure.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mine doesn't mention water, but it never said to not consider water. So I was like, if that's the goal and water isn't what's making people sick, then I'll just go with healthcare.
My issue is we were going the right path, but then we're saving more money here
Mhm.
when we saved money there. So I would have went with the closer.
But I don't think anyone had like real problems with it being 15 minutes away.
I think if you would have gone for the water, I think the woman would have preferred to have it close by, because they have to carry loads of buckets of water. Since we went for the electricity, it probably wasn't so important.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Also, the weather there is really
But and then of course it was a bit cheaper, yeah.
I also think that with, like, I thought that it should be in the community, but I think that because we saved money on that, that could go into like educational programs to make it more sustainable.
Yeah, and I think you decided also in the end for more education. That's very good. In the end, I think some of you played the role, and some of you advocated for, let's say, the right way, which is also good. It went a bit against the interest, I think, which were written on the card, but that's okay. Of course, we know some of the things already, some of the pitfalls that are happening a lot. But education is very important indeed, and with that also we, for example, wouldn't have gone for the leader, because the leader can also change or could also decide to go to the city and find a job there. So yeah, educating local community members is always important. I think you also prioritized the community already during the design and implementation, which was nice. Yeah, I think the only issue is indeed the water system. And yeah, what we see also from a lot of case studies from experience is that voices of the women are, first of all, they are not speaking up a lot. They don't dare to. It's also with the power dynamics that are often inherent in those communities. And if they speak up too, it's, yeah, other voices are louder or more listened to. So indeed, water would have been good, because it also, in the end, would have solved the health problems that the other community members experience, like the leader or the man. But yeah, for the rest, I think very good. So we already discussed which voices were overlooked and underrepresented. What kind of assumptions did you bring to the conversation about certain stakeholders? Because I saw already some of you really wanted to include the community a lot.
I mean, I did a lot of gender-based analysis, and it's like the fact that you had distinguished the women from the men means that there's this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also thinking, like, from a water perspective, yes, it's important, but maternity care is a huge issue, especially in developing countries. It's a life and death issue. So, given the constraints, it seemed like a need, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily respond to the immediate day-to-day necessarily.
I wish there was like more context, because like now it's like really general, because like I don't know why people are dying, like why people are sick. So like, because like it seems like I think it's also interesting. It's like also relates to the second point, like oh, like even like women don't really speak up, like because like when I was like asking like what do you guys want, and then like Will was like, I mean at least her car was like, I just care about my family, like, and then it didn't seem like they were very interested like in the design process. So like, but if that point was made clearer in the context, and it was like, no, you're like actually important to this, like it's like your input is like essential to the design.
Yeah, I think there is of course a good reason why we don't do that for the sake of the game, because otherwise, yeah, they would speak up a lot. You would understand the issues from the start, and then, yeah, there's not really a learning process. But I understand, and it's also what if you have projects in communities that are very rural and very different from your own culture, you face these different problems, right? That context is very unknown to you. Context is also very difficult to understand. So
it shows also structural how the structural systems favor a certain outcome. Like we say we want to do participatory, but we already went there, said if we go with healthcare, we're gonna get more money and we can save costs. So like I think just going with that was a stronger bias than actually hearing, okay, we need actually something closer to our community, so we don't have to spend 20 minutes walking every day with buckets of water.
True, but it's a lot of times what you experience that you already go in a community with a preconceived solution idea, right? That there is donor funding as well that supports in certain areas certain kind of initiatives, and if that's healthcare, then you try to push for healthcare as an outsider, even though you may not understand the real issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little like deterministic, because I want to play the role. Because if I don't play the role, then we don't have the game.
Yeah.
Or for us to play the role is like, well, I have to pick healthcare and I have to pick.
Yeah.
You know, and so it really just is like from the point that you start the game, like it is kind of decided what a few of the steps are going to be based on what's on people's cards.
Yeah, I agree with that. And probably if you would go in it from your own perspective, you wouldn't have chosen it.
But maybe also it shows that if some of the people had the capacity to like challenge biases, maybe the outcomes would have been different.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I think actually one of the learnings is like, you don't in the real world you don't have to stick to what's on your card.
Yeah.
And actually, like maybe the most important thing about being an engineer is like not coming in with the preconceived notions. You don't actually have to stick with what's at. We don't have to stick with what's on the NGO card. You can like the NGO can be last. It's okay. That's probably how it should be. Yeah, but I do think there's like realistic dynamics that like might not be captured in this. Like for example, if the NGO comes in and forces the leader to prioritize the like needs of the women as much as the needs of the men, that might be flying in the face of like the community traditions, however like misogynistic they may be, and that might have knock-on effects like after the NGO leaves that we don't see. There also might be like effects where, yeah, like if you educate the community members now, that has like changes in like education dynamics within the community, and you change the roles by involving the community members in this. So it's also tricky. I don't know.
And I also feel like the quality of the leader is very important because I know, for example,
in general.
like the engineers ask like, what does the community think? But I can only communicate with the leader, and then you can choose whether to relay my message to the engineers and NGOs or not.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you
I think-
do sometimes.
But that's a power dynamics that often happen, and to some extent might be a bottleneck, because basically it will drive the decision in a way or in another, because that it's kind of the middle man to the NGO.
And coming back to your point, I think it's important that if you choose for educating the community members, which was also here the case, the men really wanted it, right? So if it comes from within, from the community, then I think it's a very good solution. But indeed, if it's forced up on them, then it may not be the one that works really well.
But then we're reinforcing inequality by the men getting the jobs and the women having to travel 30 minutes to get the water. So it's like 2 hours. So this was it in your card to not talk a
It
lot?
was not communicating.
Yeah, because you targeted this immediately.
Yeah. Because I was wondering, like, because I know Erin. That's another bias. Erin is a very quiet person, so it worked very well in the role play.
Yeah, I can only answer when somebody asks me a question. So if you
that's
don't ask,
cool.
But wait, we don't speak the same language.
Yeah, but we ask the leader to ask the woman directly.
Oh, I guess
Because not always you have access to all the community.
Right.
So you have really to pass for the leader.
Yeah, a lot of time you.
Yeah, it's seen as a sort of overstepping the boundary and the dynamic of of a community.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It might be difficult sometimes to realize this type of community dynamics, because we might come from a different one.
So
all right.
There was a right and wrong answer in all of it.
I mean, there was. I mean, I wouldn't say there is necessarily the right answer, but of course, in order to treat the issue, which also others wanted to treat, then the water was the problem. Yeah, and involving the community is important. So, at least in the third step, if you would have chosen just to prioritize the NGO and the engineers, then of course you miss a lot of contextual knowledge. And then educating is also a good solution, because then knowledge stays and we build up capabilities, right? We build up capabilities in the community, and it can lead to employment,
So 6
better
out of
chances.
10?
What have other people
Mm,
like, what's the craziest one you've seen?
what the craziest one I'm seeing? Yeah, I think also going with the healthcare, and then if they stick really to the rules which are set on the cards, then you see also a lot of times the leader being prioritized for the operation, and also the NGO and the engineers having more power over there. And then we also choose the cheaper option over there because of the budget constraints. Yeah. All right, I think we had, this is, I guess, some of the questions that we already discussed. Yeah, would you have played it differently? I think we looked at it. Yeah, if you have a recommendation to a real-life engineering team going in a similar situation, what would you do? What would you recommend?
I think for me it would be on that engagement with the leader and the community members and kind of making that, especially hearing the thing that women couldn't say anything unless asked, like kind of being more intentional about how the questions are asked and who it's directed to.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
I think one of the things might sometimes happen that you discuss in your course, I think, but sometimes there is some hostility that comes from the leader of the community, and then it's a difficult dynamics to break through, because the NGO and the member of the NGO, they also don't know how to go around it if there is an hostile behavior, because there is not agreement with a possible solution the NGO is bringing. So this is a real problem that is not a technical problem where engineers are trained for, because it's not a matter to build a pump, for example, but it's a matter how to handle this type of situation.
We are all again here, yeah? Yeah, but he was in a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's continue. So stepping back from the game, what you've learned about design for social justice, and also in the beginning, of course, I talked a little bit about design for social justice, what the concept entails for us. I'd like to continue with a very small thought process. So imagine we have the situation, 3 children, you know it? All right, so you discussed it already. Maybe we...
You should still go.
Okay. So there are 3 children and there's only 1 flute. And every child wants to have the flute. The first child claims it because they want to make it. The second one claims it because they want to play it. And the third one claims it because they want to have, or they don't have any other toys. Now, according to what you've learned about social justice and maybe also your own experiences, who do you think should get the flute? What is your opinion? Now, I know apparently already that you have talked about this.
I'm like rethinking, am I still picking the same one? And I think I...
Okay. Then maybe let us know.
Oh, already?
Oh, no, yeah, I mean, everybody. Feel free.
We also looked at it from different philosophical standpoints.
Mm-hmm.
So like utilitarian or Rawlsian.
What's Rawlsian?
It's more like you advantage the people who are most disadvantaged. If I'm correct. So like would be number 3, utilitarian, you maximize the utility, so that would be maybe number 2 because they're the only ones who can play it. But it could be 1, 2, I guess. Oh no, I don't know.
Isn't one like the property?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like because you put labor in it, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it should belong to you.
Yeah, it seems more like deontological. Like the rule is like if you made it, you should have it. It's your own rule.
Mm-hmm. All right, so...
If the first child is like she is able to make the food, then she can make another one. Is it like the context?
That's what a lot of people say, yeah.
Like, is there more resources for people to make another one?
You think then she can make another one and then she can, or that person, or that child can give that away and have another one?
But what if child 1 could like teach child 2 and child 3 how to make flutes?
Yeah.
Maybe she would only do that if she had some nice music playing in the background. Like nice flute sounds.
Yeah.
But if the resources is limited, then the context would be different. So I think it depends.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a resource-limited setting. We want to...
Was it stolen from child 1?
No, it wasn't stolen. It wasn't stolen, no. Yeah, she made it, so if we assume property rights, then she has it still.
Oh, okay.
If other people claim it, will the child one get paid? Like
There are a lot
kinda
of
like
yeah.
selling.
Maybe they can rent it.
Or rent it, yeah. Maybe she can rent it or that person.
She can create a shell company, loan it.
And then write it off on our taxes.
Exactly. Financial engineering.
Okay, and if we talk about social justice, that person who should get it
Child.
because they don't have any.
And because I don't care about flutes.
You don't care about flutes, okay?
So I feel like if someone liked flutes, they'd be like, oh, you need to play the flute. But I'm like, a flute is just a flute. So I'm like, child 3 can have it.
But the issue is that if no one's interested in flutes because they haven't heard music from it, then no one will end up wanting to make it. So I think you need to have to show you need to show the value of it.
Mhm.
The only person, the child too, because the child 1 wouldn't need to make it if people didn't care about it.
Yeah, but in that line of reasoning, like if you take it away from child 1, then people will have no incentive to make flutes in the future.
Maybe you'll inspire them to take on flute making.
But like if they make a flute, it's just gonna get taken from them by the state. Why would they make another flute?
Yeah.
There's always going to be another child who wants a flute.
Hmm?
There's always going to be another child who wants a flute. So, you know,
But like, did child 1 get paid for her labor?
Exactly.
All right, so there are many different options and reasons why to choose any of the child. Also with social justice, I think what we learned today, so far at least, it's a concept that is not super well defined. It is still remains for a lot of people quite abstract, and that's also what we see in research that we conducted with our PhD students. Different communities associate different values of social justice or associate different values with social justice. And that's also what we see in literature, for example, in philosophy. So we have Michael Walzer talking about different spheres of justice. And he basically says there are different spheres of society that cannot really be governed by the same principle of social justice. Because of different cultural identities, they all have a different understanding of what social justice means to them. And also more recent work, Design of the Pluriverse from Arturo Escobar. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. He talks about, well, the pluriverse or also pluriversality, a world where many worlds fit. It basically means that there are, of course, different types of knowledge, different types of knowing, of being, and there's not one correct answer or not one correct way. Similarly, in humanitarian engineering or also in social justice, we have, no problem. We have not the one correct way how to define problems or how to design solutions. But it's really much depending on the perspective that a certain community takes. And that is, of course, influenced a lot by your lived experiences, but also the history that you come across, the cultural identity that you have, and those kind of things. So that means a world where many worlds fit is that every person or every community has basically a different perspective or perception of the world. And we want to design a world where many worlds fit. Yeah?
What did you say was the name of the person who came up with that term?
Arturo Escobar. It's also a book, Design for the Pluriverse. So coming to that, keeping that in mind, we talk about the perspective of value-sensitive design. I don't know if you've heard of it. Value-sensitive design is a way of doing ethics that aims at making moral values part of technological design. It can be also, it doesn't need to be moral values, can be also other human values that are important to certain communities. Basically, these are examples of human values. This is from Friedman and Kahn. So that could be privacy. I know that in Germany, privacy is very important, whereas I think in other parts of the world it is a little bit less important. So we, for example, don't like to share any of our private information on social media, and I know in other countries that's definitely different. So I think every person or community has a different or values different aspects differently. Yeah, and also some of the values that we see here, accountability, autonomy, but also human welfare or ownership, are also values that we identified in our research on design for social justice. So what are values of social justice? Of course, these are values that communities, again, we did some research in Zambia and Zimbabwe, and there were some differences in how they value that as well. So what is design? What is value-sensitive design? Basically, we can think about it like we have a technology that enables a user to take a certain action, and that has a positive or a negative impact on a certain value of a certain stakeholder. Traditionally, we were only concerned with B doing C, so a user doing a certain action, right? So, for example, a person crossing from one riverside to the next, so then we would probably design a bridge. Within value-sensitive design, we look more into the features that a certain technology has. And we also look into how can we maximize or minimize a certain value through changing features of a technology. To give an example, this is a body scanner. So that's the type of technology. And we can design it. We can change some features. So then different type of images are created to maximize or minimize certain values. So then, for example, we could maximize security, and then we have this beautiful picture where you see everything. But of course, that may not be okay for some people because it really it's not very privacy oriented, right? Some people may have issues if you see that underneath your clothes. So you can choose, of course, to maximize privacy a little bit more, and you arrive at an image that balances security and privacy. And yeah, most of the people would agree that this is something they would be able to share from a privacy perspective. So in that sense, technologies, within technology design, you can design for certain values. It is based on value-sensitive design from Friedman. They have basically a 3-step methodology, which is first a conceptual investigation, which looks into the different type of stakeholders and how, for example, certain values are implicated. And then we also try to identify competing values. So, for example, now with security and privacy, we can also look into, can make decisions if we would say, okay, we want to value, for example, moral values as more important than other values. So maybe privacy is more important, but we can also opt to not do that. So there are certain things that we can decide on. Then, of course, it involves an empirical investigation. So really talking to the stakeholders, seeing how they interact in a certain context, which values they prioritize and which they don't prioritize. And finally, a technical investigation where we can either look at existing technologies and look if they are either maximizing or minimizing certain values, or we can also take a more proactive approach where we look into the design of certain systems and see if we can, certain values that we have identified here, can design for that. Then how can we do that in a more technical translation is, for example, translating values into design requirements. So we start with values, translate that into norms, and then into design requirements. This is an example, starting with sustainability. Ecological sustainability was also one of the human values that were named before by Friedman and Kahn. So that could be then translated into the system should be powered by renewable energy, and further into design requirements, the system should use solar panels, or the system should use use a low energy demand. clear what design for social justice is about? Or not design for social justice, value-sensitive design?
Just,
Yeah.
I think that there's a big focus on like technology acceptance as well. Like, is that something that you look as part of your curriculum?
Technology acceptance by the community, you mean? Because of the values that are...
Like, there's like different theoretical frameworks in terms of how you come to accept the technology based on its use. Or
usability and ease of perceived ease of use and perceived usability, I think.
Yeah.
That's at least the TAM model. I know about it. I haven't done any research on it, but of course usability is also an important aspect. Usability could also be used as a value. You can also optimize for that.
And like the other thing is, I'm thinking like earlier you mentioned artifacts, including processes are not neutral but shape our actions. Like artifacts, for me, like can mean so many things. Like, how do you define it? Because it could be the technology, it could be how you.
Artifacts, it can be an intervention. And I would say for me that is like an artifact is something that is designed, so that is artificially made. Okay. But it can take on a lot of different forms.
A fragment might also be an artifact in that sense. It doesn't have to be only a physical product.
Okay. Okay, later on we will still do an exercise, and then values may be important. So that's why we had a quick introduction to value-sensitive design. Any other questions before we start with a break? No? Clear? All right.